So, hello. This April 14th, 2012 edition of 10 Minutes on the Clock here on the Real Sports Talk Network is a go. What's good on the internet? What is good in life? I'm LI495. Happy Saturday to all of you. I want to start off this edition by talking about the NBA. Okay, we're about a week or so away from the NBA playoffs, maybe 2 weeks away from the NBA playoffs. Most of the teams have somewhere around 6, 7, 8 games left to go. The playoff races are really starting to heat up as we get closer and closer to tip-off of what many call the real NBA season, the NBA playoffs. And I've been watching a lot of these NBA games. I've been watching a lot of them, and the Boston Celtics seem to be the hottest team going into this thing. And remember, I'm not picking the Celtics. Everybody's talking about how hot the Celtics are, but remember, I still think that they are not going to beat Chicago if they ever face them in a 7-game series, and I do not think that they are going to beat the Miami Heat if they ever face them in a 7-game series. LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, the Heat, even though they've been going seemingly in the opposite direction as opposed to the Celtics have been red hot. The Heat have been blue ice cold, but you know what? The Celtics made this same kind of run, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of years ago when they made the NBA Finals against the Los Angeles Lakers when nobody picked them. Most people wrote them off, and then they made a hot run all the way into the NBA Finals, and if not for one dude named Ron Artest, was named Ron Artest back then. Now he's calling himself Meta World Peace. But Ron Artest, Meta World Peace, World Wide Web, whatever he wants to call himself, he pretty much ended their shot a few years ago of actually winning that NBA Finals. Yeah, and the fact that Kendrick Perkins wasn't injured that year, or rather was injured that year, but that's another story for another time. But the whole point of this is that I wanted to mention that they're making a hot run. The Heat seem cold, but I'm still picking the Miami Heat to face the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA Finals, even though I wish more people would talk about the San Antonio Spurs and the potential run that they could make all the way possibly to the Western Conference Finals against those very Oklahoma City Thunder. Experience versus youth, and now the Thunder, of course, have some experience as well on their team now. It's not just young guys like Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook, but they also have Derek Fisher. There's a reason why they signed the man after he couldn't get the deal done with the Houston Rockets. So I just wanted to mention that. That's topic number one that I wanted to mention. Moving on to other topics that occurred in sports this week. Ozzie Guillen, manager of the Miami Marlins. Toda la raza de Miami está muy incensed, muy infuriado a los comentarios de Ozzie Guillen que dice que Fidel Castro. We all remember what he said about Fidel Castro, the Cuban dictator, obviously, and so many Cubans emigrated from Havana, from Cuba to Miami, of course, to get away from his dictatorship, and that started a firestorm throughout all of South Beach. He said he respected Fidel Castro, and then he tried to backtrack on his comments, saying that the reason that he made those comments was, how can somebody still be in power after doing all the stuff that he's done to his own people? How can somebody be in power? He probably was thinking, oh, maybe he'd already been dead, he'd already been shot dead, he'd already been overthrown. He tried to backtrack it then, and then he tried to issue an apology in both English and Spanish. He even said that he tried to answer the question, I guess it was in Spanish, but he didn't necessarily understand it in another language. But he was suspended 5 games, and he wasn't suspended 5 games by Major League Baseball. He was suspended 5 games by the Marlins, because Jeffrey Loria, the owner of the Miami Marlins, knows how hurtful and how much bad PR such comments can create. These are the Miami Marlins. This is South Florida. This is Miami. Miami and South Florida has a population of around 46% Latino. That's right, I said it. 46% of the Miami, South Florida population is of some form of Hispanic descent. And when you have a population that large in that city, that is that angry, and many were even calling for Ozzie Guillen to be fired after he made those comments. That's bad PR, because part of the makeover that the Marlins made over the offseason, whether it was the new ballpark, whether it was renaming the neighborhood that the new ballpark was being built, Little Havana, whether it was the changing of the colors to make it more South Beach-esque and to blend in more with the diverse population that is Miami, South Florida, South Beach. This is bad PR, and it's certainly not going to encourage fans to come to the ballpark, especially after the show that they put on for what has to be termed as the opening ceremonies to Marlins Park. Of course, now in that game against the St. Louis Cardinals, the offense didn't show up, but it was a show mixed with a lot of Latina feel, and they really want to try and bring that population to the ballpark. And with Ozzie Guillen makes comments like that, that is not going to hurt, even though I don't think he should be fired. When most people were trying to say that he should have been fired, but I don't think he should have been fired, because, if he were to be fired, it would be because of those comments, obviously, because they're trying to bring people. So if there was any reason that they would fire him, they would have to do that on that premise, on that basis. Moving on also, speaking of idiotic comments, what about Ray Allen and the comments that he made about NBA players and the fact that basketball players should actually be paid to play in the Olympics? Huh? Come again? And then Dwayne Wade goes ahead and he agreed with Ray Allen on that stance. I'm sorry. Playing for the Olympics is not the same as playing for an NBA team. It's not about a paycheck. It's about putting on your country's colors. It's about putting on that red, white, and blue if you're from the U.S. It's about putting on that maple leaf if you're from Canada. It's about putting on the Union Jack if you're from England, the host country of this year's Olympics in London. This, once again, perpetuates two things. Number one, the rest of the world has this perception that American athletes are just money hungry, that they're just into the cash, they're just into the dough, they're just into the dollar bills, they're just into the big houses, the big cars. They don't really care about their country. They don't really care about suiting up in the Olympics and these international events. They just care about the big bucks. That's number one. And number two is, this is also perpetuating why many Olympic purists once back in the day railed against the fact that the United States and other countries wanted to include professionals in the Olympics in the first place, because this is what they feared would happen. It would become too professionalized and therefore too commercialized with all of these advertisements and all this other stuff going to places. It wouldn't be about competition. It would be about commercials and other companies virtually buying out the Olympics. So that's why, and especially when the fact that most of, if not all, of the summer and the winter Olympic sports that are competed are already done at the collegiate and the amateur ranks anyways. So that's another reason why when you have U.S. bids, they always make huge use of their collegiate facilities, as does everybody else when they can. So that's another thing that went down this week. Ray Allen in his idiotic comment saying that NBA players should be paid to be in the Olympics. Basketball's not even the most watched sport in the Olympics. If I'm not mistaken, it's soccer and gymnastics, and even in the winter with other sports like hockey, downhill alpine sliding, and also figure skating. So get out of here with that, Ray Allen. Moving on, because they're not even the most followed athletes in the Olympics. In the Americas they are, but not every place around the world. Bobby Petrino. Mentioning this guy's name in NFL circles is like mentioning Voldemort at Hogwarts. Mentioning this guy's name in NFL circles is like mentioning the legend of La Chupacabra to goats. This guy is reviled around NFL circles, especially after what he did to the Atlanta Falcons in 2007, bailing on them because of the Michael Vick mess, bailing on them because he had a 3-10 record, bailing on them because he had a better offer coming at the Arkansas Razorbacks, and now it turns out that he was on a motorcycle, got into a motorcycle accident a la Ben Roethlisberger, and had a 25-year-old mistress who was once on the volleyball team that he was sleeping with behind his wife and kids' back. And now he's gone from the Arkansas Razorbacks. Woo pig suey. If you're an Atlanta Falcons fan, you are laughing hardy har from here until next week, because if Bobby Petrino is not done after this, he's pretty much bulletproof. I'm pretty much surprised after it was announced that he was fired from the Arkansas Razorbacks that he did not have a similar job offer coming down the pipe with the St. Louis Rams. For all we know, he may have been interviewing that Rams job on New Year's, because that's what Bobby Petrino does, and it's a shame because Bobby Petrino knows how to coach at the collegiate level. He knows how to coach college football, and Arkansas, it looked like, had a top 5 or a top 10 team, especially competing in that tough as hell SEC coming up next year with Florida and Tennessee and Georgia and everybody else that dominates the SEC, which is pretty much the hub of college football. But this happened, Bobby Petrino's done, and now the Arkansas Razorbacks are probably going to be looking for a new coach. Somebody even suggested that they should hire Sean Payton and that he should be there for 1 year before he returns to the New Orleans Saints next year. And I want to get out on this note because I don't know exactly where I am because I'm starting another video, but I'm pretty sure I'm past the 10-minute mark already, so I better get to this quick. Phoenix Coyotes, even though they're making playoff runs, because it's a shame that they could be doing this because they are making playoff runs, but they're not drawing the fans in Arizona that they thought that they would be getting, and now it looks like that there is a huge chance that they will be leaving Phoenix, and they will be going to Quebec City to once again become, well, not once again, but become the renewed Quebec City Nordiques, because Quebec City, they already said, oh, we already have a deal in place to bring an NHL team back to Quebec, and the Phoenix Coyotes are right now in a financial battle with the Goldwater Institute, which we all know Goldwater is ultra-conservative, but I'll leave that for political buffs to decipher. But there's a huge fight going on between the NHL, the city of Glendale, which is where the Jobbing.com arena is, as well as the Goldwater Institute and all this. They tried to get a one-year deal. They almost went to Winnipeg before the Atlanta Thrashers moved there. But here's what I think ought to happen. The NHL, even though they shouldn't be saying this publicly, Gary Bettman should be saying, oh my gosh, we're not drawing anybody in Phoenix right now. Why can't we just move this team up to Quebec where we can actually draw fans? More teams in Canada is always a better thing because expansion between this deal and the Atlanta deal last year has been proven to be a huge failure, and I think that the best move for the Phoenix Coyotes would be to move to Quebec with those rabid fans. You saw how the Winnipeg Jets drew fans day in and day out, night in and night out, and they almost made a playoff run themselves. They have renewed energy after getting out of Atlanta, who can't tell a hockey puck from a Coke bottle, and now this stuff comes up with the Phoenix Coyotes. So you have this. So I'll end this as quick as possible just so that I don't get a little bit even more so over 10 minutes than I already am. So NBA stuff, Coyotes possibly moving to Quebec, Bobby Petrino, a lot of mess happened. Ozzie Guillen, as well as Ray Allen's comments. Rate, comment, react, reply, add, subscribe. What you think of all these? Once again, keep on watching the Real Sports Talk Network with everybody here. Tim and everybody else, the whole crew, they do a great job here. Keep on watching. We're all for you. When ESPN doesn't mention stories, that's where we come in. So until next time, I'm Akeem Balaam, LI495. Once again, see you on the internet someplace.